Hi everybody, welcome to episode 14 of the Coffee, Yarn, and Dinosaurs podcast. Yay! It is one day past my first podiversary, so I've officially been doing this for over a year now, which is pretty crazy to think about. I've really been enjoying it, which makes it seem like I've been doing it both for much longer and for not as long at the same time, if that makes sense. I feel like I've been doing this for a while, but yeah. So, welcome to the podcast. My name is Ruth. I am the designer, knitter, crocheter, and dyer behind Everyday Yarnworks, which is my company both for hand-dyed yarn as well as knitting and crochet patterns. And this podcast is primarily about knitting with a little bit of crocheting and lots of yarn. I do like the yarn. There's a reason why this is called Coffee, Yarn, and Dinosaurs. The coffee is me chatting a little bit about what I've been working on and whips and FOs. Yarn is the acquisitions and the dyeing. And Dinosaurs is the sort of real life part because my husband and I are currently modifying, that's not the right word, converting a full-size school bus into a tiny home, which we will be moving into by July of this year. So the Dinosaurs section of the podcast involves updates about how the bus conversion is going, our life as we prepare to move into the bus, all kinds of good stuff like that. So there's a couple different sections. I'm just gonna get started. I am podcasting during nap time again. So if I have to stop and start a couple times, that's because I have a tiny baby in the other room. So I'm going to start right off with FOs because you might be noticing something in a general, this area. It's done. This is the huge shawl that I've been working on for months and months and months and months and months. Because I kept picking it up and putting it down and working on other designs and, doing crazy stuff like having a baby and knitting Christmas presents. So this has been in the works for a long time, but it's done and it's blocked and the pattern is like 99% done. I just have to add in things like gauge and measurements and whatever. So the whole pattern, how to make it, is done. So I will be putting out a test call very soon. Probably, if not by the time this podcast is uploaded, within a couple days of this podcast being uploaded, I will be putting out a test call for testing this pattern. But let me show it to you. I'm going to have to stand up and back up and take it off because this thing is a beast and I love it so much. So check this out. Excuse the chair scooting noises. Look at this. It's so big. I'm going to get close so you can see some of the texture. Look at that. Look at it. Look at it. I freaking love it. So I'm going to take it off so you can see the full kind of wingspan of it. Look how big this is, you guys. Look how big. I can't even get all of this into the screen at one time because it's so big. It's so big. You could totally wear this like 17 different ways. I almost feel like I have a poncho in my hands. Because look, if I want to wear it like a shawl, it's huge and it's drapey so it won't fall off. And it just sits there nicely. You could put it down your back and then throw it like a scarf. You could wear it like a triangle scarf like I was doing. You could be all cool and like knotted or, I don't know. I feel like I'm a little kid putting on a superhero cape and playing with it. One moment. Back to my fashion show. But seriously, it's amazing. So this is a new design that I've been working on forever. Oh, let me scoot my chair back in. There we go. So you guys can like see and hear me. It'll be great. All good things. I've been working on this forever, and this is knit out of Knit Picks Preciosa, I'm probably not saying that right, fingering weight. So it's a single ply, 100% merino, non-superwash, and this beast, if you include the tassels, which I have not attached yet, is 1,400 yards of yarn, which is crazy, but that's okay. So it has all kinds of texture, all kinds of, you know, different stitch patterns on it. It's got a little bit of garter stitch, some eyelets, some, am I showing you the, oh, I'm showing you the back side of it. Bad designer, what am I doing? So anywho, as I was saying, it has some garter stitch and some lace and some eyelets and some more garter stitch. And look, those are actually cables, but two stitch cables look really kind of funky and almost lacy when you block them out, like if you really pull on them to block them. Look, this is actually a honeycomb cable, but it looks all kind of like funky and I don't know. So more eyelets, texture, garter stitch, eyelets, mesh, big stripes of garter stitch, all kinds of crazy goodness. And I'm gonna fold this up and lay it away because I have taken some pictures, but yesterday it was raining and I really just wanted pictures for test knitters, but I'm gonna want nicer pictures before I publish the pattern. So I'm just gonna lay it over here. So that is kind of the big brother of my yarn doodle shawl, and my yarn doodle shawl is an asymmetrical triangle that's worked side to side, like where you start with the little tiny point and expand. And the yarn doodle has teeth on it like the hitchhiker shawl. But oh, let me tell you, the cool thing about this pattern is that all of these textured strips are interchangeable. So if you wanted to do this out of scraps, you could. If you wanted to, like, say you didn't want to work cables at all, you could just take that strip out and replace it with a different texture or a different eyelet, because I did the stitch counts so that they all will work in any section of the shawl. You could do just garter stitch and eyelets if you wanted to. You could do tons of cables if you wanted to. You could take out garter stitch. If you don't like garter stitch, you could put stockinette stitch there. Totally up to you. So this is going to be in testing for a little bit because it is a big shawl, and I want to give my testers adequate time to enjoy knitting it and not just feel like they're rushing through. And I want to have completed projects for you guys to see, so you can see what it looks like when real people knit my patterns, as opposed to, I mean, I'm a real person, but other real people besides the designer. I think it's always really helpful when designers have test projects so you guys can see what in the world is going on. So that is my first shawl. My second FO is, oh gosh, I don't remember if I showed you guys these last time. Ooh, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, if I didn't, these are, the pattern is called Uberib. They are just really simple 2-color brioche slippers, and they are a commissioned piece for a friend of my sister's actually. And without going into detail, once again, I will not be taking commission work in the future. Yeah, it is too much of a hassle for me. And I don't mean that in a spoiled way or in any kind of unpleasant way towards people who like doing commission work or people who want to buy hand knitted and crocheted things. I have just found that for me personally, I do not like the back and forth interaction of trying to create exactly what somebody has in their mind. Because, I mean, I got a message on Etsy probably a month ago of a lady who said, oh, hey, I like one of your patterns, could you make it up for me? And I said, sure, here's my price, even though I don't usually do that. I said, sure, here's my price. And she proceeded to say, oh, well, I want it in 7 colors, and I want each of the colors to be, you know, an inch long, and I want this and I want that. And I was like, you know, that's just not what I do. You know, she went through and she picked out all of these colors and said, these are great colors, here you go. And oh, by the way, I want the stripes to be less than an inch. And I was like, I can't do it. That is not what I do. I enjoy knitting for people. I do not enjoy when somebody has essentially a new design in their head. I don't enjoy designing for a concept that someone has in their head. So definitely not going to be doing commission work in the future. We'll just leave that there. I get asked on a pretty regular basis, like tagged on Facebook posts, hey, can you make this? And my response now is just, sorry, I don't do that. That's not my thing. I don't do that anymore. And it works out great because I constantly see crafters, like knitters, crocheters, whatever, saying, how do you say no to somebody if they know you crochet? How do you say no to a custom order? How do you say no to being tagged in a picture on Facebook? And really, honestly, the reality of it is you just say no. You put on your big girl panties and you say, no, I don't do that. Because I'm a people pleaser as much as anyone else, and I hate saying no. I hate telling people no. But when it comes to this, I have learned that it is just not worth the aggravation. It is not worth the stress of me trying to make somebody else that specifically happy, because I will get zoned in and I will focus on what they want. And I have design projects to work on. Like that big yellow shawl, I put it down to work on the custom slippers that still have not been paid for or picked up. And the paid for thing is totally my fault. I get that. That's, you know, money first, item later. I get that. That was totally my fault. But now I have a pair of slippers I can't wear, that I have no contact with my customer for, and that I actually put out money for. So I am in the hole and I have a pair of slippers. And no, I'm not going to throw them on Etsy because what's the point? So anyway, that's my little rampage about why I don't do custom order work anymore. But there are plenty of people who make it work really well. So if you are interested in doing knitted and crocheted custom work or selling your work, it is possible to make it work. My personality and my goals right now just do not work out with that. So those are actually the only two, oh no, they're not the only two FOs, but I'll show you the third one later in another section. So whips, let's talk about whips. What am I working on? I'm gonna open a couple of my bags and just see what's in here. Ooh, okay. I started it's like Christmas. I have project bags on my counter and I just open them up and see what's in them. I started my So Faded sweater, which is, I'm sure most of you know, a pattern by Andrea Mowry. And it is supposed to be a pullover sweater, but I am going to be steeking it down the middle and making it a shawl collar cardigan. So I haven't gotten too far. Here is my cast on so far. This colorway is Yarn Cafe Creations Selkie. And you're supposed to do a normal cast on, but I did a provisional cast on because I am going to be picking up these stitches later. I know to make the collar. This is around the back of the neck. It's a top-down raglan sleeve. So I'm going to be picking these stitches back up later, and I would rather have the live stitches from, here I'll show you, from the provisional cast on. I would rather just have those than to be picking up stitches and hoping I get the right amount of stitches across the back of the neck. So, oh, funny story. I did not read the pattern correctly. So if you notice at the top, these are the increases for the neck, right? So here's the sleeve across here, and this is the increases for the front, like for the, whatever you call it. Yeah, the front. And for some reason, when I read the pattern, my brain completely skipped the fact that you're supposed to increase for the front and not just inside the markers for the sleeve. So the first couple of rows, I was not, like right here, you can see it kind of goes like straight down and then expands. This straight down part, I was not increasing for the front of the sweater at all. So my front stitch count is a little, it's gonna be a little bit different. It's not much, it's only like 4 or 5 rows of increases that I missed. So it'll just be a slightly, instead of being like a rounded neck, it'll just be a slightly wider neck here, which is totally fine because I'm doing a shawl collar. If I wasn't doing a shawl collar, it might be an issue, but because I'm putting on such a big collar, you won't really be able to see that it's just a couple of stitches off. So right now, so you cast it on and work back and forth to give yourself a little bit of a scoop in the neck so it's not a boat neck. And not a boat neck, what do you call it? Crew neck, so it's not a crew neck, like really tight. And I'm just about at the spot where you join to work in the round. So once I join that, it is gonna start flying. Not that it hasn't been now, but I've just been working on the gray and yellow shawl so much that I haven't had a whole lot of time for this. But I like the yarn. I like the pattern, even though I misread it. And the seams for my raglan increases, I messed up there too. It's only supposed to be 1 stitch in between increases, and instead of knitting up to the marker, increasing right next to the marker and increasing on the other side of it, I increased 1 stitch before the marker. So it essentially gives me a 3-stitch seam, but it's a design feature. We'll call it a design feature because I am not in the mood to frog back any part of this sweater just because I have 3 stitches for a seam instead of 1. It's really not a big deal. I actually kind of like it. I think it looks smooth. So I would rather have a smooth sweater than a not non-existent frogged sweater. And what else? I like this yarn. It's pretty. I like it. I'm only about, I want to say 2 to 2.5 inches. Yeah, maybe 3. 2.5 inches into this, and at I think about 5 inches I need to switch to the next color. So my next color is going to be this Spooky Spice by Dragon Horde Yarn. So that is that. That is my so faded cardigan. I'm calling it a cardigan. It's not called that on the actual pattern, but that's what I'm calling it. So I'm working on that. Other bag. So if you'll remember from last time, I showed you guys I was working on my Bad Wolf Bay little socks, the little ankle socks. And I told you I had wanted short ankle socks, but for some reason I worked like a full inch before the heel flap. And then I worked the heel flap too long, and like, it's just, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. Like on the so faded cardigan, I feel like the little mistakes I made, like it's a design feature, that's great, no big deal, it's totally fine. On this, I know how I like my socks, and this is not it. It's not an issue with not liking the pattern, because it's my pattern, it's my own pattern, I love it, I've knitted a bunch of times. It's not an issue with whether or not I like the pattern, it's just an issue of I can see the too long stockinette before the heel flap. And I can see the too long heel flap, and every time I put the sock on, it is going to bug me, and bug me, and bug me, and bug me. So I am probably going to frog this, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to cast them on again and just do it correctly this time, or whether I'm just gonna let the yarn sit for a little bit, because I do have a lot of projects going on right now, so I'm not entirely opposed to just frogging it and leaving it be for a while. And the same thing with, you remember my little DK sock slash mitten? It's just something about it have you ever looked at a project and you're just like, that's off. Something's off. I don't know what it is, but you're not 100% happy with it, and you're like, no, it's like, it's gotta go. There's something wrong. I'm not 100% sure what it is. It might be the stitch, it might be the gauge. I don't really know, but I'm not super pleased with it. So I'm probably gonna do the same thing like with the Bad Wolf Baysox. I'm probably just gonna frog it and hold the yarn back in my stash for another time, purely because I've got a lot of projects on the needles, and I'm trying to be more monogamous with my knitting. I'm trying to focus on the projects that I have on the go and finish them. Like, start a project, finish it. Have just a couple on the needles and get stuff going. And let me tell you, I always have cast-on-itis. I always want to cast on new things. I have like 17 new design ideas right now, but it felt really good to finish that gigantic gray and yellow shawl because it's been on the needles for so long, and it feels so good to finish it and block it and have it ready to show you guys. And I like that feeling so much that I'm going to try to do better about doing things like that. So working on fewer projects and just working them to completion rather than constantly having new casts on. Cast on. So that's that bag. Speaking of active whips, in my little socks bag, I have not socks. This bag was a prize from the Shorties in a Shoebox Cal with the girls in the Yarn Cafe. And I have in it, you might recognize this because, gosh, that looks familiar to your Bad Wolf Baysox. Well, yes, astute watcher, it certainly does, because it's the same motif, but it's going to be for fingerless gloves. Ta-da! So this is what I have so far. It's a top-down glove with a ribbed palm and a nice lace motif over top of it. And this is by Ching Fibers. Let's see if you can see this. And this is her Cuttlefish colorway. And that's pretty accurate. It's a little bit more purpley than is showing up. I'm probably going to try and see if I can edit it. There you go. That's better. Where you can see all the purples. It's showing up a little bit white on the screen. Yeah, that's a little bit better. But anyway, this is the Merino Cashmere Nylon base, and I'm really enjoying it. It has, I really like the neon speckles. I think that's super cool that she puts little neon speckles in. And it's got, so it's technically a lavender to lilac, but it has speckles of pink and blue and purple and neon orange and neon green, and it's just, it has lots of character, I think. And I like it. And it's very soft. And to be honest, I'm not 100% positive how I feel about using a merino cashmere nylon yarn for gloves, because gloves get beat up pretty easily. And so I'm thinking that these might felt pretty easily. So I may be making a second sample without the cashmere in it, so it would be a little more sturdy. I think. But what I showed you from the here to here is about 2 days worth of knitting at this point, because Clint's been working on the bus a lot, so my knitting time has not been a whole heck of a lot, which is okay because the bus needs to get done because we're gonna live in it. So it's more important for us to have a place to live right now than it is for me to have tons of knitting time, even though knitting is our income. But that's a different story. Yeah, so fingerless gloves. Bad Wolf Bay fingerless gloves. I have a new pattern release. Dun 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 dun. is, I'm putting them on to show you, my almost Aran fingerless gloves. Look at that. And you can see, once again, I obviously really prefer the ribbed palm. And this is the same style that I'm going to be making the Bad Wolf Bay mitts in. So this is my hand-dyed yarn. This is Everyday Yarnworks on the baby bear sock base, and the colorway is Handprint Turkey. And it was one of the first colorways that I dyed. And it's just this really cute, easy mitt with cables down the front. And I love it. I made these, well, funny story. These have been a design project in the works for about 3 years. And it's not because they're super difficult. It's not anything crazy like that. It's just that I had the concept in my head, and the first time I did them with a stockinette palm, and they were longer, and I even got to the point where I gave them to testers, and testers were just like, it fits a little funny, like it's kind of saggy, could you do something about that? And it took me another couple of years to come back to them, which is sometimes how designing works. Sometimes you end up with a good idea in your head, and it might take up to a couple of years to get it to fruition, to get it actually into a published pattern. So, yeah. So, almost Aran fingerless gloves. And by the way, the Bad Wolf Bay fingerless gloves, I checked in I have a design notebook that I keep all of my concepts in so I can go back to it. I checked in my design notebook. Those have been in concept since July of 2016. So those have been in concept for a year and a half, and I am just now getting around to knitting the sample for them. So, but again, for those, the pattern is all written out. And I like 100% completely done. I just need to finish the sample, and then those will be out for testing too. So new patterns are coming your way. Hooray! They pretty much just need to get tested and tech edited. So that's very exciting. Yes, oh, sorry, you can find these on Ravelry. I have not put them on Etsy yet. I'm planning to do that. I have not put them on Craftsy yet. I am planning to do that. It's just Ravelry is the easiest place for me to upload stuff first, and then I like to put it on the other platforms later. But, ta-da! Oh, as a side note, since we're talking about designing, let's talk about that for a second, because when I was working on designing this, the Silvertongue shawl, which is what I'm calling it, by the way, the Silvertongue shawl, and I'll explain that more at a later point in time. I realized over this past week, as I was finishing up knitting it, I realized how massive it was going to be, and that is not really a standard shawl size. It's about 82, 84 inches maybe for the wingspan, and it's over 40 inches deep, so it's a really big shawl. And while I was knitting it, I decided I was going to start looking up other designers' current shawl patterns, just to see what depth they were, so I could see, you know, a triangle shawl on somebody's body and see what the depth was. And a couple people had mentioned Andrea Mowry's What the Fade as a really big shawl, and so I was like, oh, I'm going to go see what size that was, and that was only 33 inches deep, and I almost stopped, and if I had stopped, there would not have been this extra right here. It would have just stopped the shawl there, which is totally fine, and it's still totally a really cool shawl, but I had the concept in my head that I wanted the last color there, because there's 4 strips of texture here, 3 strips of texture, 2, and then I wanted to have that 1 on the end. I wanted to make sure it was 4, 3, 2, 1, and I decided, you know, this is my shawl pattern. This is my design, and just because Andrea Mowry stopped at 33 inches deep does not mean that I have to. And just because other designers might make a shawl that's 25 inches deep, or maybe the wingspan on theirs is only 70 and it feels like it's a normal size shawl. Why do I have to stop just because they did? I don't. So, little rebellious me made a gigantic shawl because that's what I want to design, and I like it. And I hope you guys like it too. I know huge shawls aren't for everybody, and I know they can sometimes be a little bit difficult to wear, but what's the point of designing if you can't make what you want? What's the point of me making a new design if I make it like everybody else's? There isn't one. So I made a gigantic shawl. And I do want to know from you guys though, if you like knitting huge shawls, do you make really big ones? If you saw a pattern like this, would you want there to be a smaller size option? Because I am considering knitting a second sample in a smaller size. So I would like to know, you know, would it intimidate you to see just a gigantic, you know, if you saw something like this on the pattern page? Would that intimidate you? Would that keep you from, not even intimidate, but would it keep you from wanting to try the pattern? Because I don't want my crazy design choices necessarily to keep people from trying something that they might like. So, let me know. Curious minds would like to know if you would like to see a smaller size shawl sample of this. Let's see. Things coming up, like design-wise. Obviously I'm doing the Bad Wolf Bay mitts. I am planning doing a second sample in this lovely set from Dragon Horde Yarn. And this is one of her sock sets that she put out for Valentine's Day. It is on her Dragon Scales base. This is a new acquisition, that's why I'm telling you. But I thought it would be really fun to have a glove with a contrasting cuff and thumb and bottom cuff and all that. So this is a second sample I'm going to do, and look at all those colors in there. I just thought that was really, really fun. So I am going to be working on this, a second sample, and it's probably going to be like one pair is long and one pair is short, or, you know, something like that. So also coming up for me design-wise, I've been really intrigued lately by shawls that aren't in conventional shapes. So maybe shawls that aren't just worked straight from the top down or straight from the bottom up. There's been a lot of concepts in my head lately that I've been thinking, well, what would happen if I did this? Or what would happen if I did that? And so I'm gonna be trying a couple of shawl projects in the near future that maybe they'll work and maybe they won't, but you guys will probably be seeing some kind of funky shaped shawls because I want to know. And this is why I design. A lot of times I design because something comes into my head and I'm like, well, what would happen if, you know, what would happen if I knit fingerless gloves from the top down instead of the bottom up? Let's try it and find out and see if I like it. Do I like top down gloves or bottom up ones? Who knows? I have to try it and find out. Or, you know, shawls. Sorry, I got cut off there for a second. So anyway, my point is, I'm going to be pursuing design concepts that I'm curious about and things that I want to know about. So you might be seeing things that are a little bit different than what you've been seeing from me before, but that's okay. And to that end, my yarn diet, poor yarn diet. I grabbed a couple of skeins of Lion brand Mandana because this is a DK weight yarn, and obviously it's a long self-striping yarn. So you get, show you on the side there, I'm gonna get a color pattern that looks like that for this particular color, and it is 590 yards for a 150 gram ball. And yes, it is 100% acrylic, but I feel that for a design experiment, since I'm on a yarn diet, part of it's financial, part of it's clearing out space. If you remember my yarn diet, I'm going to try yarn that costs $5 instead of yarn that costs $20 because I want something that I can play with and not feel terrible if I end up having to just chuck it. But this is a really cool looking yarn. It's really pretty. I'm not usually into the long self-striping color changes. I tried Karen Cake's yarn once and I was not really a fan. I didn't particularly care for it. I usually like being in control of where the color changes are, and I don't mind weaving in ends, so usually I would rather just change my own colors. But I've seen a couple of projects with this yarn that I really liked the outcome of, so I thought I would give it a shot. So I picked up 2 balls of this, and this is the Genie colorway. And I picked up another in this, what's it called? Chimera, which is a dark rainbow, kind of like a harvesty rainbow. And this might not be a shawl, or if it is, it's going to be a small shawl because less than 600 yards. And the third colorway is, they're pre-caked, so it's kind of a little bit of a mess. This is Centaur. And it didn't have a label because it was in the store, and it was the last one of this colorway, and there was no label, and I was kind of like, screw it, I really like it, and I want it anyway, so I snagged this. So those are acquisitions, those are plans for the future. Oh, and I also got, which I'm sure you guys have seen everywhere, Japanese knitting stitch Bible, which is really interesting because I thought it was just a stitch dictionary when I purchased it, but it turns out that there's also ideas in here for how to modify stitch patterns, like how to adapt stitch patterns to, I guess, make a concept your own. Like, I'm gonna try not to show you the actual chart version, but here it says change up the rate of decreases to make a looser pattern, right? So these are the same stitches here as they are here, but the suggestion is how about you decrease slower, you know, put even knit rounds in between. And I really like that because I think it encourages people to think for themselves rather than take a pattern out of a stitch dictionary and just slap it onto a cowl or a scarf and say, look, I made a new pattern. Well, yes, technically, and am I guilty of doing that myself? Yes, I have absolutely done that myself, just taken one stitch and run with it. But I think that there's so much more value to sitting, if you're going to take a stitch out of a stitch dictionary, I think there's so much more value to sitting with the stitch and thinking, is this how I want it to be? How will it work with the shape of the fabric I'm trying to create? If I want to make a shawl, how will it, you know, should I do top down? Should I do bottom up? Should I do a crescent shawl or triangular shawl? How will this stitch look with the shaping of the project I'm trying to make, rather than just let me put it on a cowl, knit for 12 inches and be done. I just like it better. I think it's really valuable to have a book that encourages creative thinking, not just here's a whole ton of stitch patterns. So I'm not sure whether I'll actually use stitches out of here. I might use some. We'll see. Who knows? I'm experimenting. So let's see. Shop update. I finally did some dyeing, and the new yarn is already in the shop, and it has been for probably a week at this point. But I just want to show you a couple of the new colorways that I've created because I like showing you guys new colors. Some of them have already sold out, so I don't have them on hand. And I do want to say thank you so much to you guys who have purchased yarn from me, because we are using my yarn dyeing essentially as income so we can move into the bus and go on the road. So it makes a really big difference to us when you choose to buy and support my hand-dyed yarn, because we're using it to change our lifestyle essentially. That's not like a guilt trip. That's not like, go buy my yarn so I can live in a bus and do crazy stuff that I want to do. It's just a thank you. It's a sincere thank you. It makes a difference in our lives, and it's really cool to see. I upload stuff into the Etsy shop, and a couple of the listings sold out right away, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys like my yarn. So that's a really big encouragement to me too. Sorry, my kids are upstairs sleeping, and the older one just is not going to sleep. It's probably because I'm down here talking and he can hear me talking and thinks I'm on the phone with somebody. But anyway, new colors. This is, oh, I have 2 new yarn bases. It's so exciting. So this one is 100% Highland wool, not superwash. And that was a little bit nerve-wracking because this is the first time I have dyed on non-superwash wool, and I was a little concerned that I would felt it. It didn't felt at all. It didn't full. It turned out perfectly, and I'm so excited. So this is, I don't remember the names. I always laughed at dyers, and I thought, how could you not remember the names of the yarns that you just dyed? It's your product. It's in your shop. How could you not remember the name of it? Guys, I don't remember the name. So I'm just going to show you and describe them a little bit. It won't be too long, I promise. I'm just going to show them to you. So this one's kind of a light peach with some fuchsia, berry, some purple in there. I wanted to try doing a couple of lighter colors, so this is one of them. And the next one I've done before, but this is purple crocus. And it's sort of a gray and lilac with like orangey gold in there. And actually I was thinking the other day that these two would look really fun together. To put them in like a 2-color shawl or whatever. They're just very springy and flowery and not my usual colors, but I really like them. So there's those two. And, you know, of course it's spring, so what do? I dyed a fall color. This one is called Blustery Day. And it's just a whole lot of deep kind of yellowy gold with red, and this is sad. This is so blown out right now. This is not, let's see if I can turn this a little bit and get a more accurate color. That's better. That's better. I may also edit this section of the video, so if all of a sudden this is dark and then the yarn looks like it's supposed to, you'll know why. So there's that, just browns and golds and all of that. This one is on my new sock base. This is my ultimate sock base. It is an 80/20 high twist 2-ply sock yarn, 80/20 superwash merino and nylon. And this one is called Mistress of Evil. Because I was dyeing the lighter color and I was like, I'm gonna do black. I'm gonna do some with black. What should we do? Black and purple. Yes, let's go for it. So there's light and dark black, light and dark purple. I just love it. I think it's super fun. What else? This one is called Make It Pink, Make It Blue. Like in Sleeping Beauty when the fairies are like, make it pink, make it blue with the dress. So this is this nice, deep, saturated royal blue with pink and the silver. And then I really love where the pink and the blue mix together and make just this gorgeous purple in the middle. So that's really fun. And I did more Jungle Sunset. The 3 skeins of normal Jungle Sunset sold out already. But I have this one, and I'm calling it Jungle Sunset Light because this was the 4th skein in the pot, and somehow it just did not get the same amount of dye as the others. So I have this 1 skein of Jungle Sunset Light is still in the shop at the time of recording. So it's got all of the, like the turquoise, and there's There's some orange and red on the, look at that with the red on the inside and the speckles. And this is what you have to do with kettle dyed yarn, indie dyed yarn. Like if you're in a yarn shop, open it up a little and look at the colors that are inside. Because look, that looks kind of just pale. And then it's like, shabam, turquoise and green. Or like that looks kind of pale. And then you open it up and it's like, bam, orange and red. So seriously, do that with the bright yellow and green. Oh, it's so cool. And what else? What else? I'm digging in my yarn bucket trying to get these colors out for you guys. I did more unicorn tail. And the funny thing is, if I can find the other one, these two were in the same dye pot, and one came out pink and one came out purple. So in the Etsy listing, there's a listing for the pink skein and a listing for the purple skein, because even though they were in the same pot, one, like, look at these. They look like totally different colorways. I did exactly the same thing to them. They are the same base. And this is why I love yarn dyeing, because you can do, like, this is me reproducing a colorway that I've done before, and what is this? One pink and one purple. And then, where is it? Digging through my bucket. On my mountain base, it came out like it was supposed to, which is a combination of pink and purple with blue speckles, but no, this one couldn't cooperate. So anyway, there's that. And oh, okay. This one is called Vintage Americana. It's got that nice light taupe and brown and like this blue jeans kind of color on Ultimate Sock. And this one is called Bloom Where You're Planted. And yes, I do still have to make this skein pretty because they got a little bit tangly. So if a skein is ever tangled up and you purchase from me, I will sometimes reskein them. Like if it's tangled up, I will always reskein it before sending it out. So if you get a skein and you're like, I got the yellow and gray one, and you buy it and it doesn't look like this, it looks like all mixed up together, that's because if they get a little bit tangled in the dye process, I reskein them so that when you get them, they are nice and smooth and not tangly. So anyway, bloom where you're planted. And this one is called Fathoms Below. Like the Little Mermaid when they sing the song. Yeah, look at that. Oh, look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? I feel like I should be singing that song every time I look at yarn. Wouldn't you think I'm the girl who has all the yarn? Nope. And then this one is called Koi, because it reminds me of a koi fish. Look, swimming along. Reminds me of a koi fish. Apparently I had nautical things and animals on the mind while I was dyeing. Check that out. It's like this bright, this is really funny too. This is not the color I intended this to be. This was kind of an oops, but it was a really happy oops, and it's a repeatable oops. So I can make more. Yes! I love this yarn. I love it so much. And I'm trying to decide if it counts against my yarn diet if I take yarn that I have dyed out of the store. Does it count? Nah, but look, oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty with black speckles. I got really excited by black speckling and black accents this time. All right, you get the idea. So anyway, that's what I have. I'm trying to read my notes right here. Hence the rustling and the everything being everywhere. Right, so on to the dinosaurs portion of today. There's been a lot of work done on the bus, And I am going to put videos at the end of this. There might be a good like 10 to 15 minute update of just how things have been going on the bus and what we've been doing. But the one thing that I do want to say is not necessarily if you think it's a bad idea, don't give us feedback. But when you're considering anybody's idea or any life decision that someone is making, think about how you respond to them. Because we've had a lot of people say to us, "You're crazy." And they don't mean it in that like, "Oh my gosh, that's so crazy," right? Like, that's ridiculous. They mean it like they're looking us dead in the eye and saying, "You're insane. I think this is the dumbest idea ever. You're insane." And I don't need everybody to affirm me, and I don't need everyone to think that my life decisions are what they would do. But I do think there's something to be said for being kind to people. And you don't have to make the same decisions as someone else, but you should be kind about it. Walking up to somebody and saying, "Hey, you've made this really big decision with your life. That's dumb. And you actually mean it," that's rude and that's hurtful and is probably not a good idea. So I welcome the feedback. I am totally fine with you guys thinking that this is crazy, because I get that it is not a normal thing to do to convert a school bus into a tiny house and live with it. But I would just ask that if you're commenting on my video or on somebody else's video, be nice. Like, just be nice in the way that you're commenting. Not that I've gotten bad comments from you guys. All of the bad comments have been in real life, talking to people that I know. Have been all of the, "You're crazy, that's dumb," whatever. But like, really just think about it. If you made a life decision, would you want somebody being like, "You're stupid"? No, we tell our kids all the time, be nice. Don't say you're stupid. Don't say shut up. Don't say, "You're crazy, that's horrible." But we do it to each other as adults. So just think about that maybe. I'm going to insert the bus videos here at the end, possibly with a little bit of narration, possibly with a little bit of, subtitles and editing and whatever. But thank you for watching. Thanks for those of you guys who have stayed with this podcast for a whole year. What? Thank you. I'm really excited for what it will be over the next year, especially because we're moving. I think the podcast is going to change a lot in a really good way over the next year, and I am super excited to be sharing all of this life and knitting and dyeing and this big adventure with you guys. So check out the bus stuff. I hope you like it. I hope you liked the knitting content. I'm pointing at yarn that you can't see. I hope you like the yarn that you can't see. Yeah, if you have questions about anything on here, feel free to drop them in the comments box. Shoot me an email. Oh my gosh, it's the end of the podcast and I didn't tell you guys. You can find me on Ravelry, on Instagram. I'll put all of the information down below in the information box on YouTube. So yeah, enjoy, and thanks for watching. Bye. All right, so we are at the bus. I have not seen it since Clint started cutting all of the floor out and everything like that. So I'm just gonna walk over, check it out, see what I see. Muddy, muddy. Let us see. Whoa, I don't know if you can see this. The steps are all cut out. Whoa! Look at all of the stuff that's cut out. This is crazy. Look at that. Look at that, look at that. All of this is cut out. The windows are all cut out. And the doors are off. I'm standing where the steps would be. And they've cut out all of that back there. There's a lot of work that's been done. Pretty cool. You gonna come see? Yeah? Look inside. What do you see?
All the bus stuff.
All the bus stuff. Where did the stairs go?
I don't know.
Did Daddy and Uncle Ethan cut them out?
No.
What do you think?
Pretty cool.
Let's go to Pop-Up's house.
Thoughts?
It's pretty crazy. You guys have done a whole lot of work. What's up, little man? You see the bus? Yeah. Pretty cool. Not with the sakis on your hands.
Remember what? It's gone.
And there's the wiring box. Ta-da!
They're up there. What remains up there?
Yeah, all that's left of them are up there. No more wiring box. Pretty crazy, huh, dude? Got batteries. There we go. Now you can see them.
It's alright, little Joe.
So all of this is cut out. Sure, buddy. Climb up. That's pretty crazy. So the whole wheel wells are cut out. And this is a good... Here's a small child for scale. That's how much of the floor is cut out. Of course, what do you do with a metal floor? You sweep it and stomp your boots on it. Good job, guys. So here's what the front of the bus looks like right now. We've got what remains of the wiring up on the steering wheel. And the floor cut out under the driver's side. Your boot fell in the hole. Oh no! Phew, you saved it. Yep. Baby swing. Josephine's first tree swing. Oh, please stop with the boots. And we've got the floor cut out where the steps are. Pretty crazy. So we've got all the windows back here. Driver's chair. Of course, the shovel that everyone needs. And here's what it looks like from the back. So, lots of good work. Clint's been putting on navel jelly for rust converter. And how much, where did you put all the navel jelly? Did you...
Everything that's black or
a different color up here?
Sheen to it.
Yeah, I can see the spots that look like they've been painted. They stand out.
The stuff that still has a rust tint, it needs to be washed down and redone again. But it's $7 a bottle. So.
Yeah. So all of these black spots down here are navel jelly that's worked successfully.
It's rust that has been converted to iron phosphate.
Nice.
So it is no longer rust.
Most excellent. So that saves you from having to cut out the pieces. Because you were going to cut out this whole floor, right?
Yep.
Like all of this was going to have to be cut out.
I was going to, yeah.
Sweet. That works very nicely. And then obviously, since Clint is standing where the stairs were, obviously the stairs are not going to be there anymore.
Yep.
We were talking about putting them maybe right there.
They're most likely going here.
Oh, right here.
And we are doing a airplane type door with the fold down stairs.
Trying to get you not in a shadow.
And we are using this section so the top part I can use one of the windows so it looks
Oh, that
consistent
makes
with
sense.
the rest of the house.
So we'll be able to fold up the window and then fold down the stairs.
Exactly.
Very, very cool. Awesome.
Hey, fair? No.
So obviously, a lot of progress has been made here. Clint is trying to get the floor all done because next weekend we are having friends come down to help raise the roof, which is super exciting. And this is going to look completely different once the roof is raised. So right now, I can just reach up and touch the ceiling, but after next weekend, that will not be the case.
So it'll be about 8 feet.
Yes, which will be very exciting, and it's going to look completely different.
A little bit.
A little bit. Still look like a bus, just a much taller bus. Where are you going to start the roof raise? Are you planning on doing it?
We're cutting a hat channel in the center.
Okay.
This is hat channel.
Yeah.
It's the name of this metal. It goes from this floor up and over the bus. They're the bus ribs.
Mm-hmm.
We're cutting these in the center and inserting a two foot section of hat channel on
Okay.
every single rib.
And you're starting at this front rib.
We're starting at this front rib, maybe doing that halfway and angling up to it,
Okay.
and then doing all the way to the last rib and then angling down. Some
Okay.
people cut through the top here and raise the whole up to the front, but we're
Above the
angling
windshield
up,
and everything.
For aerodynamics.
Righto. So we're driving less of a brick down the highway. Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah, plus welding with those windshields. So
Oof, yeah.
rather not. Having to-
Melt the windshield. Better not. So check out where I'm standing. There's not a hole in the floor anymore. This is pretty sweet. So, oh look, a wood stove made out of, what is this?
It's a 60-gallon air compressor tank.
Yeah, air compressor tank.
Fire it.
This is really toasty. And you've got it going out the skylight to keep the bus warm. It's got the little shelf that you guys put on it, which is awesome. And so there's still that gap in the floor, but the wheel wells are cut out, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, this is great. Do. So are those for raising the roof?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Well, boxing out the wheel wells.
Yeah.
It means it's not going to have the hoop anymore. It has. Most people build a wooden box. They build a box up and over and down, and they box out that round so they can actually have usable flat space.
Yeah.
We're not having a box. We're having a ramp and then flat.
You actually framed out the actual tire instead of.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool.